All right, we are going to be discussing a prominent disinformation story about global warming. And my neighbor alerted me. He kept on going on about the Milankovitch cycle. And I didn't know. I said, isn't it supposed to be cooling based on the Milankovitch cycle, which is a combination of the precession of Earth and the tilt of Earth and the eccentricity of the orbit of Earth. And you get three different cycles, and they cause the insulation of the sun to change, hitting the Arctic, and that in turn heats or cools the planet and causes the ice age cycles. And so based on the Milankovitch cycle, my understanding, we were supposed to be cooling right now, which is true. But according to this video that's on YouTube, the last 10,000 years have actually been, well, this is the graph that they used. So they're claiming based on this graph that the current warming right now is actually a natural variation from the Little Ice Age. Now, these periods in the graph actually are directly from these lines here. So the Little Ice Age is number 1, and you can see it described in the description here, Little Ice Age. And then the medieval warm period would be number 2. So you can see they're not that dramatic compared to this graph. So the person who made this graph has over dramatized the data. And then the graph goes to, they combined this to now, but it actually only goes to 1950 because they were combining a different graph from Richard Alley's article that I'll get to. So then when we go to the clarification, what we find is that this is from the Greenland ice sheet, ice core. It was first made in 1993, and then the first papers were published in 1998. But it says here the reconstruction changes the relationship between the delta of oxygen isotope 18 and the temperatures by a factor of 2 during the Holocene, while more recent reconstructions keep it constant. Similarly, elevation change influences the oxygen 18 isotope records. The old Greenland ice sheet Project 2 reconstruction did not take elevation changes into account. So that's why this is wrong. And so what does that precisely mean? Because that's the issue here. It's like we want to really understand the science. So here's the video that's claiming it's wrong. So we click on this video. This is the video my neighbor told me about. And there you see that's the same graph I just showed you, and the whole video is like saying global warming's not real because of that graph. Okay, so now we have another blog post that corrects. Here is a later graph that shows the same time period, and this is the actual Greenland ice sheet temperature change over the last 10,000 years. So we see that the Miocene cycle definitely is a natural cooling that starts after the maximum of the warming that ended the ice age. It started to cool again, and it's kept on cooling until the industrial CO2 emissions really kicked up, and then sure enough the temperature went up. So that's the actual graph, and then it explains that graph is an updated version in 2013 that combines 73 sets of temperature measurements from all over the world rather than just that one ice core temperature from Greenland Ice Sheet Project 2. And so they're critiquing the Heartland Institute paper, claiming, that the actual graph that they use is that global temperature higher than those during 90% of the entire Holocene. So that's Marcotte and this original graph is, I have the link for that lower down, but okay, so if you look at the insolation graph, you'll see levels will still go down for the next few thousand years. So again, the insolation is the Milankovitch solar level heating of the Earth. So the natural trend would be global cooling, but global temperatures are actually rising. They're as high as the warmest period of the Holocene, when insolation levels were about 10% higher than they are today. Okay, so the human energy in the atmosphere is 22 zettajoules. That exceeds the prior 11,700 years of the Holocene. And that doesn't even account the 500 zettajoules that the oceans have absorbed. So it's like way, way worse than just the past 11,700 years. In total, 60% since 1950 has been the 22 zettajoules, more than the entire previous Holocene, which was only 14.6 zettajoules. Here we go, the oceans have stored 436. This is a little outdated, so now it's over 500. Okay, so then we start getting into why they changed that data from the Greenland Ice Sheet Project 2. And it has to do with they used a model based on what they thought was the accumulation rate of snow after the warming, and they thought that Greenland would be different. So the average accumulation and temperature have been inversely correlated during the most recent 7 millennia. The Greenland ice sheet probably thickened during the glacial transition. The inverse correlation of accumulation rate and temperature in the mid and late Holocene suggests that the Greenland ice sheet is more prone to volume reduction in a warmed climate than previously thought, and demonstrates that accumulation rate is not a reliable proxy for temperature. So they were assuming that the Greenland ice sheet was colder and had not experienced this dramatic warming like the rest of the world did right after the end of the ice age. They thought that Greenland was isolated, and so that's why they had this factor of 2 difference between the oxygen 18 isotope and the temperature difference. Indeed, the documented large differences between the previously expected and observed calibrations in central Greenland suggest extreme caution in the use of water isotopes. In paleothermometry, in the absence of reliable local calibrations, the use of atmospheric models to calibrate has great promise. So this is before it was corrected. So what they did was they had to calibrate the borehole readings of temperature with the other ice core readings in the rest of Greenland and also in Canada. So I'll get into that. The alternating intervals of warm or heavy levels of isotope 18 and cold which is light levels in relation to isotope 16. So the more dramatic of warmings involved a 8 degrees Celsius increase, and then two times the increase in snow accumulation. So that's where you get this 2-time difference between the temperature and the isotope reading based on their model of what happened in Greenland. But it turns out they were wrong. So then you have another graph. This is the one again that the first graph is trying to rely on. So you have that same 10,000 year difference before 1950. So this is the problem again in the first graph that is the error, is that they're claiming it's before present when in fact it's actually before 1950. So that was another error that the graph made, is that they tried to claim it was up till the present time when in fact this graph only goes up to 1950. So they're combining two different graphs and then over dramatizing the errors in the first readings of the temperature based on the modeling. So here we have the correction. The previous interpretation of evidence from the stable isotopes of the oxygen 18 in the water from the Greenland ice sheet ice cores was that the Holocene climate variability on the Greenland ice sheet differed spatially, and that a consistent Holocene climate continuum, the unusually warm period from about 9,000 to 6,000 years ago found in many northern latitude paleoclimate records, did not exist. Here we extract both the Greenland Holocene temperature today and the evolution of Greenland ice sheet surface elevation at 4 Greenland ice sheet locations. We achieve this by comparing the delta change rate to the oxygen 18 isotope from Greenland ice sheet ice cores with the delta 18 oxygen isotope from ice cores with small marginal ice caps, contrary to the earlier interpretation of the delta 18 oxygen isotope evidence from ice cores. Our new temperature history reveals a pronounced Holocene climate optimum in Greenland coinciding with maximum thinning near the Greenland ice sheet margins. Our change delta and 18 oxygen isotope based results are corroborated by the air content of ice cores, a proxy for surface elevation. So they're saying indeed they found that the Greenland ice sheet did get much warmer than was previously thought, even despite the snow accumulation being twice as much as elsewhere. And so it has to do with the melt rate of the water was greater than they thought. State-of-the-art ice sheet models are generally found to be underestimating the extent and changes in Greenland ice sheet elevation area. Our findings may help improve the ability of models. So this paper is the big correction. The clear Greenland Holocene climatic optimum now unmasked in delta. The change of 18 oxygen isotope records from Greenland ice sheet ice cores bring these records into line with the borehole temperature data. This rehabilitates the change in oxygen 18 isotope as a reliable temperature proxy, paving the way for temperature reconstructions based on high resolution delta change of isotope 18 oxygen records from ice cores. So that is based on this paper here. No, it's based on a different paper. Let me see. It's based on this paper. Okay. So this is the big correction of that original 1998 publication of the first Greenland ice core study that was in 1993. And so that's why that first video was a big lie. By systematically re-drilling ice cores, we created a high-quality reconstruction of Central and North Greenland temperatures. This is a later period, from 1080 to 2011. Here we show that the warming in the recent reconstructed decade exceeds the range of the previous of the pre-industrial temperature variability with the virtual certainty, warmer than the 20th century. So they're proving that since 1950, the temperature's just gone up due to anthropocentric global warming. And that's been apparent since 1800, which is what the original models are from, again, 1750, that shows the increase in human-caused global warming from burning coal. So here's the graph for that. So you have the Milankovitch cycle indeed shows you have a cooling of temperature that goes down and down and down until 1800. Now, that would keep cooling if there wasn't human-caused global warming, but the temperature has indeed increased. So that is that paper that I just linked, this right here. There you go. Okay. And okay, so basically they're showing, again, as I mentioned, the great melting that occurred around, what was it, 8,000 years before present. And then, so the last 4,000 years has been a decrease in the melt events. And it's been cooling steadily for the last 1,000 years. And that's exactly what this shows. And then, so then instead of the temperature difference being a factor of 2 as first assumed, they're saying the trend in stable water isotopes a proxy for temperature, that follows the steady cooling. Our interpretation is consistent, indicating annual temperature increase and summer temperature decreases throughout the Holocene. So they're taking into account the seasonal variability. Quantifying the amplitude is done by calibrating the water isotope with absolute temperature changes derived from the gas in the ice cores. So you have both temperature and the water isotope readings from the ice core. Timing of abrupt climate change at the end of the Younger Dryas interval. So the Younger Dryas is when you had that cooling that occurred, and then but that was right before this 10,000 years. You had this sharp cooling, and then since the past 10,000 years, it's been cooling until abrupt human-caused global warming, and then you had the temperature going dramatically up. So this is not the GISp2 site, but it's basically like the one site, which is this is done by European scientists, and it's the nearby ice core to the GISp2 ice core. It's on the summit in Greenland, the Greenland ice sheet. So it's showing the same thing. It's corroborating the ice core stable isotope records from those 5 different 6 ice core sites, and from Canada have provided continuous high-resolution proxy records of Holocene temperature variations. These records were corrected for effects from altitude changes due to ice flow and ice sheet elevation changes. However, the paleothermometer deduced from stable water isotopes may be biased because it reflects temperatures only at times of precipitation. It is influenced by temperature changes in the moisture source. So they have to take into account all these noise factors. The quantity of melt layers combined with the oxygen isotope, and the snow accumulation is inversely correlated with temperature and can, in similarity with stable temperatures, be used as a temperature proxy. So again, they were misinterpreting the snow accumulation amount at first. They thought it was twice as much, and apparently it wasn't, because you had a much greater melt rate. So here we have another graph for the last 10,000 years, and you can see it's a steady cooling until, again, human-caused global warming. So let's go way back up to the very first big error. The claim that supposedly debunks all. So they're basically claiming that just a little ice age was cooling and the rest was warmer for the last 10,000 years. But no, it's been cooling for the last 8,000 years after that initial interstitial warm period of a few thousand years. And so it's been cooling steadily, not just for the little ice age. Okay? So cooling steadily until recently. So here you had these first ones. There was a lot of variability. This was the noise that didn't get corrected yet. And so that's why he was trying to use that. Here you have the correction. It shows again steady cooling for the last 1,000 years until the human caused global warming since 1800. Once again, past 60,000 years. So here you have the younger dryas cooling, and then it abruptly warms after the end of the ice age, and then starts cooling again until human-caused global warming. So here we have again cooling, and then human-caused global warming for the last 10,000 years. Okay, so let me see the changes in both the temperatures at the snow surface and the accumulation rate used in combination. So here they're trying to use the nitrogen and argon in the air bubbles in the core readings that are independent of conditions for precipitation. And so that's how they're able to calibrate. The ice temperatures are archives. So that just shows another way that they're correcting against the models that they originally had assumed and later turned out to be wrong. So, okay, that's more on this correction using this original scaling method does not consider the influence of the seasonal distribution. So that's what they're correcting for there. Okay, and this is the original history on July 1993. After 5 years of drilling, they penetrated deep enough into the bedrock, thus recovering the deepest ice core thus far. And then the European ice core is that Project Grip that's nearby. So they started it in 1988. Okay, during the Holocene, many locations in the the northern hemisphere showed unusual warmth, yet changes in Greenland appeared inconsistent. Vinther, Vinther is this Holocene thinning correction. That's Vinther. Vinther now standardized the previously disparate seeming ice core records of climate history on the Greenland ice sheet during the Holocene and find consistent evidence for a stronger climate optimum than was previously recognized, together with elevation reduction and marginal ice sheet thinning. The previous interpretation of evidence, so that corroborates what I was just saying. The previous interpretation of evidence from stable isotopes in water from Greenland ice sheet ice cores was that Holocene climate variability on the Greenland ice sheet differed spatially and that a consistent Holocene climate optimum, the unusual warm period from about 9,000 to 6,000 years ago, found, see here they have 6,000, 9,000, 9,000, 6,000, found in many northern latitude paleoclimate records did not exist. But they were wrong, see? Here we extract both the Greenland Holocene temperature to history and the evolution of the Greenland ice sheet surface elevation at 4 GIS locations. We achieve this by comparing the change in the oxygen 18 isotope from Greenland ice sheet ice cores and from ice cores from small marginal ice caps, contrary to the, I'm guessing maybe that's Canada. I don't know much. Contrary to the earlier interpretation of evidence, our new temperature history reveals a pronounced Holocene climate optimum in Greenland coinciding with maximum thinning near the Greenland ice sheet margins. Our results, corroborated by the air content of the ice cores, a proxy for certain surface elevation. State-of-the-art ice sheet models are generally found to be underestimating the extent and changes in Greenland ice sheet elevation and area. Our findings may help improve the ability of models to reproduce the Greenland ice sheet response to Holocene climate. So that is right here. Gonna load. Greenland thinning, Holocene thinning. So that's that same paper. Holocene thinning, it's just a different format. Nature, September 2000s. Okay. So there you go. So this original dramatized air graph that was trying to combine two different other graphs. This one was trying to combine this one with this one. And that was before this correction that I just explained. So I hope that finally clarifies why this thing is wrong and this is correct. And this is wrong and this is correct and that is correct and that is correct. So there you go. Correct, 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 wrong, correct, really super, super wrong, and wrong. And there you have it. So that's just one example of misinformation about global warming, and it's happening all the time by well-funded oil corporate funding of misinformation, and it takes a lot of work to find out what really happened. So you have this explanation, The change in relationship between the oxygen 18 and temperatures by a factor of 2. Again, that's due to the snow accumulation by a factor of 2. But they didn't explain what that precisely meant in detail. So that's why I wanted to dig deeper, find the actual studies that showed this change, and go through and read the actual data of how it was discovered, why it was changed. So basically their original models were wrong, that there was more melt than originally realized, and that the ice had thinned more than they realized in Greenland, along with the rest of the Arctic area around Greenland. Our new models reveal a pronounced Holocene climate optimum, which basically means warming in Greenland, coinciding with maximum thinning in the ice margins. So there you go. Thanks.